Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And this patch saw several ships that were only temporarily available in the past make their way into the armory on a more permanent basis. And one of those ships is the subject of today's video. And that is none other than the Tier 9 Premium Swedish battleship, the Karl XIV Johan. Now, the Karl XIV was first released all the way back in September of 2023. So it's been, what, a year and a couple of months since this ship was first released. Now, she has been somewhat available in between then. I believe she came back in some containers, and then you could also acquire her as part of the ship trade-in event this past year. So while she's been on and off available, you haven't been able to outright buy her like you can now. She's available in the armory for a whopping 19,300 doubloons. So about your average Tier 9 premium ship cost, so nothing too crazy there. Of course, you can also use your coupon on her and potentially get her for a little bit cheaper as well. But do you even want to pick up this ship in the year of our Lord 2024? It hasn't been a minute since she's been released. There's been several changes to the game in that time span. So do you want to pick her up this year? That is what we are going to be discussing in today's video. So, what even is a Karl XIV Johan in the first place? Well, it is a wargaming creation. So, their lore behind it is that this was supposedly a ship under construction by the Germans during World War I, but due to the Treaty of Versailles, they were forced to sell the hull to the Swedes. The Swedes bought it, finished the ship, and pressed it into service. And that's how we get the Karl XIV. But what is it in game? Well, Tier 9 battleship with a gear gun. Well, they are gear guns, but you don't get the German AP shells or the HE shells, which is actually a good thing, as we'll see here in a second. But yeah, you do have a gears guns, 305mm guns on a Tier 9 battleship. So by battleship standards, those guns are fairly small by Tier 9 battleship standards, so you're not going to be doing a whole lot of overmatching with those guns, but the AP isn't really the primary munition that you'll be using on the Karl XIV. You will be using it, don't get me wrong, but it's really about the HE. You see, the Karl XIV is a battleship that leans heavily into the damage over time manner of doing damage. 12 305mm guns with a pretty solid reload on them base. You're capable of slinging quite a bit of HE out with these guns. I mean, even with my build, while I don't have much built into at all into the main battery guns, you have a 25-second reload on those 12 305mm guns. So there's a fair amount of HE, or shells in general, going down range. And add on top of that, you have a whole lot of secondary guns on this ship. You get 12 120mm secondary guns, and then you get 14 150mm secondary guns. Now, again, like the main battery guns, the secondary guns do not get the improved German HE pins. So the 120mm secondary guns, they're only pinning 20mm of armor, which isn't really a whole lot by Tier 9 standards. I mean, you'll be able to deal with destroyers pretty well, and, light cruisers, but even the 150mm secondary guns, they only pin 25mm of armor. So, yeah, that might not seem good on the surface, but it's all about the fire chance, you see, because those 120mm secondary guns, per shell, they have a 7% fire chance. 150s have a 13% fire chance. And then your main battery guns have a 28% fire chance. So once you start adding all of that up, this is a ship that can... I don't know why my PC keeps revving up like that. This is a ship that can very easily smelt things down through sheer volume of fire, especially when your secondaries are in range. So that's typically how you do well in the Karl XIV in those Tier 9 games when you're dueling other battleships. Now, the secondary guns, you may notice that when you build into them fully, they only have a 10.5 kilometer range, which isn't great by Tier 9 standards at all. However, what's really cool about the Karl XIV is that once you do a full concealment build on the ship, so the module and the commander skill, your concealment range is your secondary range. So this is a Tier 9 battleship with a 10.6 kilometer concealment range, which is downright goofy. Now, there's something else that the Carl the 14th has going for it, in that on top of the main battery guns, the secondary guns, you also have 4 sets of European torpedoes. The European torpedoes that are fast in terms of speed and also fast in terms of their reload. And they go out to 13.5 kilometers. So that means you can stealth torpedo with the Carl the 14th, which is goofy. And it's not like, there's some ships out there that's like, yeah, you can stealth torpedo by like half a kilometer. No, you have a full 3 kilometers on your detection range where you can be stealth torpedoing with the Carl the 14th. So typically what I'd like to do in situations where you can't just outright brawl, because the ship is actually a pretty good brawler. Again, the secondary guns, while they may not be pinning a whole lot by tier 9 standards, they're going to be setting fires, they're going to be causing the enemy ship to be popping their damage con, and then obviously with the amount of secondary guns and main battery HE spam that you're going to be giving them, you're going to be setting them on fire on a permanent basis. But the AP, they're still 12 305mm guns, right? And 12 of those shells to an enemy ship's broadside is not going to be a great day for that enemy ship. Then you add on to the fact that you have these torpedo tubes, these pan-European torpedo tubes. You have 4x4 of them, so 8 torpedoes to their side. Even though they are the pan-European torps, they do a little bit less alpha damage. Well, not a little bit less, a lot less alpha damage at 10,700 damage per torp. 8 of those into your broadside, that's a dead tier 9 battleship, right? When you add on top the gun alpha and all that jazz. So it can brawl in those situations. But when you can't brawl, what I like to do with the Carl the 14th is, well, basically force the enemy player to pop their damage con in some way, shape, or form. You use the torpedoes to get good, consistent torpedo hits on the enemy ship, which will, of course, apply an instance of flooding to them more than likely, eventually. And that will cause most battleship players to pop their damage con right away, because flooding damage is pretty rough, and it slows the ship down as well. So they'll pop their damage con, and then that's when you just bathe them in your secondary guns and your main battery guns HE, and before you know it, you'll have 2 or 3 fires on that enemy ship, and they'll be melting down quite well. The Carl the 14th is also fairly quick as well. When you 32 knot top speed with the flag, that's more than, in most cases, capable of dictating the terms of its own engagement, especially with that excellent concealment. So, you keep them at torpedoes range while you're throwing torpedoes at them. Then once you get an instance of flooding on them, slow on down, get them into your secondary main battery gun range, just start melting them down with the HE spam that you can give them via your main battery guns and secondary battery guns. Even really the main battery guns by themselves don't really have too much problems starting fires from my experience with the Carl the 14th, so that's really nice. As far as the rest of the ship goes, the armor is actually really good for what it is. This is a pretty rough ship to Citadel. Unless you are like hard maneuvering, you really aren't going to get Citadel'd in the Carl the 14th. You have a nice 35mm icebreaker bow, and you have a nice 95mm plate that almost wraps around your stern. So, angle, this ship is really, really tough, fellas. Again, short of turning a hard over broadside or maybe some extreme plunging fire at range, the ship isn't really going to get Citadel. Now, of course, if you sell broadside to somebody, obviously you're going to eat pin damage, right? I'm not saying you can sell broadside and not worry about getting any damage or anything like that, but she is a properly tough ship. So, as far as how it performs in 2024, I've been playing this ship fairly consistently for the past year because I do really enjoy her. She does pretty well. Fires don't really care about the differences in your gun caliber compared to the enemy battleship, or really about their armor, because fires are going to burn no matter what, right? And the torpedoes are really, really surprisingly usable. I mean, again, this is a ship that you can stealth torpedo. Now, obviously, with CVs and submarines, if they are, in your detection range, and that does kind of ruin the whole thing, right? But, I mean, every ship has that problem. You do get hydroacoustic search as well with the Carl the 14th, which is awesome. Again, dealing with submarines in today's World Warships, hydro is so important to give you that early warning about the torpedoes or to spot them if they get close enough to you for it. So that is an excellent tool for her to have on top of everything else that she's got going on for her. So is she worth the doubloons? In my humble opinion, yes. If you even don't care about the secondary battery guns, you can go for a complete main battery gun build on the Carl the 14th, and you will do great. Again, the HE spam capabilities are very strong with this ship. Full secondary build is what I do because I like that type of play style. I would not take IFHE because it does ruin the whole, burn them down mentality. I mean, if you really want to, go for it. I don't think it's the best way to play the ship, but I would recommend not worrying about taking IFHE in my humble opinion. But yeah, I do think it's worth it. Again, she is a doubloon ship, and she's not in the featured section, so you can use the coupon on her and get her at a bit of a discount, get her 25% off, so that's pretty good in my humble opinion. It's a ship that will also do well in ranked and brawls, again, for the reasons we talked about, the secondary guns, torpedoes, the stealthiness, that's all fantastic in those highly competitive small format game modes like those. So yeah, great ship all around, great random battle ship, great ranked ship, great brawl ship. Probably wouldn't be an amazing like clan battleship because she does have a smaller hit point pool than your average tier 9 battleship, so you don't really have, the tankiness that they're looking for in tier 9 battleships. Usually 72,000 damage is 72,000 HP is what she's got. While it's, better than some other tier 9, low health battleships, it's still pretty low by the tier 9 battleship standard, right? So guys, that's my 2 cents on the Carl the 14th Johann. Let me know what you guys think about her in the comments down below, if you've managed to acquire her or not. Just let me know what you think about her, and if you have picked her up, are you enjoying her, you're still finding her useful in 2024, share your thoughts down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday and wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.